I think we are live. Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon or good morning. Well, for me, it's good morning. My name is Scott Mathieson, and I am here in Auckland, New Zealand, and it's 7 a.m. in the morning, so 6 p.m. in Western Europe, UK. And greetings. Good to have you all on this webinar on how to move to New Zealand, how to migrate to New Zealand, how to get a job in New Zealand. And it's great to have you here taking this first step. We've been doing this for many, many, many years and helped thousands of people move to New Zealand. So you've come to the right place if you want to find out what's happening now, what's the job market like, but critically, how do you actually get through this process of ever-changing immigration policy? Got three panelists on today with loads and loads of experience who I'll introduce you to now. I'll start up in the UK with Paul Goddard, who is a licensed immigration advisor for New Zealand. Paul, if you could introduce yourself to the panel, please. Well, sorry, to the viewers.
Yeah, my name's Paul. As Scott just said, I moved to New Zealand back in 2003. It was an unusual move. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. I had the BBC film the whole thing for a documentary program, and it was it made great TV, but it was really stressful on purpose. But I did it, and we did it as a family, and have no regrets whatsoever. New Zealand is the best place to live in the world. It's the best place in the country in the world to bring up children. It's the happiest country in the world, the least corrupt country in the world. The most livable country in the world. It tops these lists all the time, and that's why there are so many people who want to move there right now. And it's also why, if you want to move there, you've got to get ahead of those people.
Fantastic. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, and Paul's been working on and off for almost 20 years now. And again, Paul, you've helped, literally thousands of people move, have been doing so at our events going back, to the previous decades. So Paul's got a wealth of experience. Our next licensed immigration advisor also has 10 years of experience as a licensed immigration advisor, which is quite a lot in this market. I'll introduce you to Candy Leong. Candy, you say a few words about yourself, please. Hi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Candy. I'm a licensed immigration advisor in Working In. I joined Working In this year. And I have been working as a licensed immigration advisor for more than 10 years now. My role in Working In is to do the eligibility assessment report for most of the overseas work clients. And I'm a migrant myself, and I was born in Hong Kong, and I moved to New Zealand with my parents when I was 15. My uncle is also an immigration advisor, and he advised my dad that it may be his last chance to move to New Zealand. So he had to act fast because of the age limit. And my dad decided to make a move. And so we are in New Zealand. I studied 2 years of high school in New Zealand. And I graduated from University of Auckland. And as a young migrant, I understand how challenging it can be to adjust to a new environment and a new culture.
Absolutely. Thanks, Candy. Yeah, Candy's a great example of someone who's completely done it, but also I find it interesting that Candy came here as a student and her parents were the primary movers. So, had to go through that experience of joining high school quite late and then going to university and since then has been a licensed immigration advisor. So thanks, Candy. Our next panelist is our employment specialist, Hilary Bonham, is down in Raglan on the west coast of the North Island of New Zealand because we're currently in lockdown. Hilary, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Sure, thanks, Scott. Hi, everybody. I've worked for Working In now for a very long time, alongside Paul and Scott, and more recently Candy. Who's on here today, but we do have a very large immigration team and a really big recruitment team as well. So I'm myself and the team are really passionate about helping people like you through this journey of moving to New Zealand. And as the others were saying, it definitely is a great country. There's awesome beaches and mountains on our doorstep. And my role is really looking after yourselves through that journey once we're talking to companies about you. So we've got some really great relationships in market here with companies across all industries, from healthcare, IT, engineering, construction, education, and the list goes on. So I look forward to talking to you a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, thanks, Hilary. Yeah, as we'll all find out, in New Zealand, the job is actually really critical. We don't suggest that you start looking for a job now, because it's really important that you get organised and get all your material and information correct before you start applying for jobs. But you will find that the critical part of this entire process is the job. So Hilary is a very important part of our team, as is the rest of the recruitment team, and we'll get into that detail a little bit later. So just as an update on what's happening here in New Zealand, I mean, obviously COVID is a big issue for everybody around the world, and every country seems to be handling it a little bit differently. Here in Auckland, we've been in lockdown for many weeks now, and our government takes a very hardline view on the virus. And even though we have not eliminated it, it's really about as much suppression as possible. So our vaccination rates up here in Auckland are over 90%, and it's something that you're going to have to be aware of if you're wanting to move to New Zealand, that currently you are not allowed to enter New Zealand unless you can prove you have double vaccination. This is the rules that our government are imposing. So it's probably important that we let you know that now, because I'm sure it does impact some people. Now, obviously, we believe that it's not going to be here forever in the way that it is now. And a lot of what we're talking about for today, for you people who are on this webinar, is around what happens when the borders open. There are border exceptions now, and Hilary will talk about that, and Candy will talk about that, because we are bringing in people from all over the world, predominantly in the healthcare industry, who meet border exemptions. But we really are saying today, get prepared, because next year when the borders do open, there was going to be quite a rush, quite a large volume of people wanting to move here. And this is about getting organised. So your first step on getting organised. So that's the current situation. There's quite a lot to get through. I'm going to move over to Paul Goddard now, because Paul, I've talked about the job being really important, and but you need a you need a visa before you can get a job before you visa. We've talked about this so many times, haven't we? The catch-22, and it doesn't just go away, and it won't go away because new policies coming out, and it's no change. So, Paul, can you update us on this whole conundrum, please?
Yeah, the catch-22 has been around, pre-COVID. Obviously, it's part of the immigration system for New Zealand. You need a job offer to get a visa. And then it throws up this dilemma of, I can't get a job offer because I haven't got a visa, but I can't get a visa because I haven't got a job offer. And COVID has basically made, it's accentuated a bit, because the reason the catch-22 exists is because of the doubt or the lack of knowledge from New Zealand employers. If you send a CV to an employer, the employer will look at your CV and they will say, you know what, this person is amazing. If they were sat here right now in front of me and they had a visa in their hand, I would offer them a job. But they're not sat in front of me, they're overseas. And I don't know if they're going to get a visa, when they're going to get a visa, how are they going to get a visa, what have I got to do so they can get a visa, how long is it going to take? Will they like it when they get here? Will they stay when they get here? There's this endless list of reasons for the employer not to engage with you if you just send them a CV. And so the way that you remove the barrier, the way that you get around the catch-22 is using people like us who can basically turn around to an employer and say, here's this person. They're skilled, they're eligible, they're ready to move, everything's in place, all the documents are good to go, they're 100% committed, all you need to do is offer them a job. If you offer them a job, we'll make sure the process runs quickly and smoothly, and a work visa could be issued within 2 to 6 weeks of lodging. That's what an employer needs to hear. And if you're doing this on your own, you can't say that to an employer. You can tell an employer you're fully prepared and ready to move. All that says is that you're keen. If it comes from somebody like us, it gives it credibility. And that's a massive tip for everybody who's on this webinar right now, is you need to get around the catch-22, and using people like us is how you get around the catch-22.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. It is a conundrum, and you did highlight that. I think COVID has accentuated that, and the reason being is that most New Zealand employers think, well, we can't look offshore, we can't even entertain overseas applicants because the borders are closed. Yet employers that we're looking for, and Hilary can detail this out a little bit further, are actually actively offering jobs to the right people. Some will get border exceptions, but some, the offer is contingent on when the borders open, which is, somewhere maybe February, March, April, who knows. But that's how people are seeing this, if they are educated, I guess, or aware of the process. So you did mention the work visa, and I'm just going to move on to Candy now. Candy, most of the people on this webinar will be interested in residency and eventually becoming a citizen of New Zealand. So in order to get permanent residency, Paul's talked about the work visa, but people will want a residency visa. Can you just explain the two different visa types, please, and what people need to do to actually obtain those?
So the work visa is a temporary visa, usually give you a shorter time period to stay in New Zealand. And like the permanent resident visa is to give you, of course, like the permanent time to stay in New Zealand. And also how to get it, like as Paul already mentioned, the main thing is to get a job offer. Both of them will need a job offer in order to apply for a work visa, and then to move on to start the resident visa process. For the work visa, after you apply, you secure a job offer, and then you apply for the work visa. Why we need this step is because you can start coming to New Zealand sooner, because the residency visa will take a lot longer to process, and so we need this kind of like same step to go through, like first for the work visa, so that you can come here, study, to work faster, and then to start the residency program so that you can stay here indefinitely.
Yeah, fantastic. So what you're saying is the process is get your job offer, you apply for the work visa, we get that underway, and then we start working on the residency visa, because that takes longer time. Okay, now there's been quite a lot of changes to the residency visa. There used to be a work to residence visa. I understand that no longer exists. So the only way forward is the skilled migrant category. Is that correct?
Yes, right now it is. And for the work to residency visa, it has been started on the 31st of October, and this is no longer available. And from the 1st of November to the 1st of July, and the employer can still support a worker for a essential skill work. And then from the 4th of July, and there will be a new work visa category coming through. It is called the accredited employer work visa, which is a 3-step work visa, and that will be involve a employer check, and also a job check, and a migrant worker check. And if you have this visa, then like you will be able to apply for the residency visa after you apply this work visa.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, there are going to be changes to how we do the work visa. Essentially, at the end of the day, the process has changed, but the outcome will be the same, i.e. if you get a job offer, you need to be able to prove that the local can't fulfill that role. If you and the employer especially can prove that, then you'll be granted a work visa in most situations. Then you can apply for residency, and under the skilled migrant category. And then can you just explain how the skilled migrant category works? I'm sure most people understand that it's a point system, but can you just give us an example of how the points are made up, Candy?
Okay, sure. So it is a point system. Currently, it is sitting at if you reach a point system for 160 points, then you will be able to apply for this EOI, we call it expression of interest, to apply for this skilled migrant category. And so it have a lot of like little sectors that like you can gain points. The main thing is like you will need to have a skilled employment, and then like there will be age, and different age will have different band for so that you can claim points. And then you will also have qualification points and work experience points. And as you said before, like it is quite important to inspiration, because how you get this or claim this qualification point is by you may need a NCQA assessment, so you need to start the process so that we can make sure that you have the point that is you have the qualification band that is able for you to claim this point. And if you have all these points add together, it is more than 160 points, then you are able to apply for this EOI.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so the 160 points that you that this is currently set at, it is interesting because one of the things that we'll do, and one of the things that we'll ask you to do, is fill out one of our forms online, which is an eligibility assessment. It's free, and we highly encourage you to do that, just to have a view on whether Candy and her team can see whether, on the face of it, you meet this criteria for the 160 points. And some people get close, or some people think they're near, but there's a lot of factors around it. Your qualifications may not meet the New Zealand Qualifications Authority standards or be recognised, and a lot of it is around the age. So you get more points if you're in the, I think 30 to 30. Can you just explain what's the point?
Yeah, okay.
So
yeah, no problem. So thanks, Scott. The age is mainly this is what my dad is got stuck on as well. So so if you are older, you get less point, and if you're younger, you get more points. So basically, if you're age 20 to 39, you will get 30 points, and if you're age 40 to 44, then you will get 20 points. And if you're 45 to 49, you will have 10 points. And if you're age 50 to 55, you will get 5 points. As you can see, the age is like lowering. So it is that's why we always tell our clients that you will need to add fast so that you can have more points, because the immigration is currently reviewing the policy. It may be, there's rumors saying that they may be like the points will go higher. So like it is very important that you like add now, so as much as points that you can.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a really, really important point, that as you get older, the points that you receive drop, and a lot of people do get caught on that cusp. Yeah. So find out now, fill in the eligibility assessment, and then you'll get a good idea if you're in the zone. And that's the reason why we do this is, we don't want people spending money to find out whether they're eligible to move to New Zealand. Do this free eligibility assessment, find out, and at least you can understand your pathway and whether you've got a chance. If you do have a chance, we'll ask you to chat with Paul. Paul is more than happy to have 15 minutes chat with you. I can see he's chatting online now. He's typing away, but he'll have, every single person on this webinar has a different life story, different circumstances, and lots of questions that can't be covered on this at all in this one-way sort of medium. So if you do look as though you qualify in that first instance, we will invite you to speak to Paul for just 10-15 minutes to clear out any issues. Okay, the time is moving on now. The big one is really about employment. So Candy's covered off pretty clearly that the job is only as important for the work visa, but it's also a really big chunk of the skilled migrant category points. So you basically need it unless you are a multi-millionaire and you can come down here on the investment visa, but we're not talking about that today. So Hilary, onto you. You're the employment specialist. Hilary's been working in, I think you joined in 2005, I remember. So, an amazing wealth of experience down here, talking to New Zealand's biggest employers. What's happening in the employment market now, Hilary?
Okay, so we are, as Scott said, been in the market for quite a long time here. So we've built some really great relationships with clients across the country. and that's across all different industries. So we're quite prominent in healthcare and in infrastructure and IT and other areas. So hopefully we can help you. There is a skill shortage at the moment, so so companies are crying out for people. There is that problem that Paul was talking about, where companies are getting inundated with CVs. So they use us at Working In because you have been through the process with Paul, you've found out that you're eligible. Our recruitment team look after you and try and match you with our clients and into the right roles. And then so there's that support we offer the clients here in New Zealand. We have been very successful across healthcare, so bringing in nurses and doctors. They can get border exemptions, so if you're a registered nurse or you're a doctor or you work in healthcare, it's definitely worth starting the process now. And if you're not registered, to start looking at that registration process, because that can take some time and you need that to come in. But we do work with a number of DHBs across the country and other health providers. So yeah, I definitely encourage you to do that. And also I've got a couple of slides here around what's happening in the infrastructure market in New Zealand.
That'd be great to see, yeah.
That slide. And while this is sort of talking about infrastructure trades, because we do have a number of companies that are looking for infrastructure professionals, this also just highlights to you guys, if you're working in other industries, the growth that's happening in New Zealand. So while we need people in infrastructure to start some of these projects, that's going to build the number of roles that are going to be available in other areas like IT and healthcare, etc. So just have a look at this. What we know at the moment, so the New Zealand government is investing 60 billion in infrastructure across our country, and that's due to our population growth. So at the moment, we have 5 million people, so we are still quite a small country, but 500,000 of those people were added to our population over the last 6 years. So growth at this rate would mean that we would need 40,000 new workers per year, so it's huge. We also know on the next point that the government has over 60 approved projects planned from now until 2032. Main infrastructure projects being across roading, so huge new highways and busways. So civil construction continues to be on the rise. Then we've got our rail, which is ongoing maintenance and new rail that's been planned. I don't know, those of you that might be in infrastructure overseas see that we've got a big city rail link project on at the moment, which is a 42-metre rail link that is linking up Auckland, so underground Auckland City project. So that's ongoing, that's huge. We've also got water services, so that's including waste management projects of new and upgrades to our current treatment plants. And some exciting areas, we've got new and redevelopments of hospitals and universities, our schools, recreation facilities and community housing. Also our Auckland and Wellington airports have big upgrades planned. And I was just talking to one of our clients yesterday, and they've won a number of these exciting new projects. They've got the Dunedin Hospital build. So this is a 6-year project from design to build and the surrounding areas. And also another client who's looking after the new Christchurch Stadium build. So we've got a lot of new stuff happening, which is really exciting. We also know, looking at that third point, there's high demand for infrastructure and construction professionals across all of our country. We need people to resource these projects. We've got the government approved projects I was talking about, but also a big residential and commercial boom. So for this amount of investment across these multiple projects, it's going to require thousands of people. So it's a really exciting opportunity for you guys to work on some key areas. The new roading plan will definitely see growth in new housing subdivisions, which is just is really ongoing. Outside my window here, I've got massive subdivisions, so digger drivers going constantly. So it's pretty visual across the country. And
Hilary, if I could just interrupt there, it's obviously infrastructure means there's jobs for people that are in the infrastructure and construction industry, but it's not solely that. We're building infrastructure for schools, for hospitals.
Yes.
And so what that does is create jobs across the whole spectrum, isn't it? Because what's the unemployment rate at the moment? I just saw that labour is as hard to find as 1975. It's the hardest moment right now to find labour since 1975, or skilled people. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So on the last point on the slide, so jobs have definitely been very hard to find, and at the moment, if you look at that graph, it's showing that, and so it's been the highest it has been in the last 46 years. So since 1975, the labour shortages are at its highest. So it's pretty phenomenal.
And this is really the impact of COVID, because the borders have been closed. We've normally relied on skilled migration to boost our, plug our skills shortages. The borders have essentially been closed for 2 years, and that's created, huge pressure, isn't it? And you talk to employers every day. What are they saying? What's their feeling? I mean, I know that you've been speaking to some big people, but big companies. But what's the general feeling?
Well, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of worry that some of these projects can't get underway. They can't find the right people here in New Zealand. We've got job orders from them, so to start recruiting. Some of them are recruiting, and as I said before, and bringing people in on the border exemptions, and that's across all industries. And some are pipelining, so wanting to for us to find people. And they're keen to interview now and pipeline them, so when the borders do ease, they can bring them in. So there's a real sort of worry about how they're going to sort of find the right people for these jobs, so that these projects can get underway.
Fantastic, thanks. Look, we're under a little bit of time pressure here, so I'm going to move on to Paul. But I think one of the messages that Paul can explain is really that you do want to be at the front of that queue, because, for example, that company that you saw last week, they have 400 vacancies. As soon as those 400 vacancies are full, then that they're done. They don't need any more. So it's really important that you're at the front to take advantage of this situation, because it's all job-led. Paul, can you take that a little bit further, because I know that you've had a lot of discussions around this.
Absolutely. As you know, Scott, you and I and all of us have been doing this job and this role for a long time, and I can honestly say in the last 12 to 18 months, I've never seen the amount of people who want to move to New Zealand right now. Just because the borders closed doesn't mean that people have stopped wanting to move. And in fact, with everything that's going on in the rest of the world, New Zealand has become this extremely desirable place to move. And that queue is massive. I mean, we can only estimate how big that is. It's hundreds of thousands, millions, who knows? There are millions of people. I reckon it's millions. And I can only, to put that in perspective, I used to do, 15, 20 calls per week for people who, just wanted to make the move, and I'd have a quick chat with them. I've been doing 85, 95 calls in 4 days for people who want to make the move in the last 6 months. And that's people that we've already screened, so they only get to talk to me if they can make the move, so there is a massive queue. And if you have any real desire to make that move to New Zealand, you've got to be aware of this queue, because it's very real, and you need to get ahead of that queue, because employers are going to be smart when it moves forward. They're not just going to plaster job vacancies all over the internet, because if they do, they're going to get flooded with lots of people who they're not interested in, or who aren't eligible, who can't do it. The smart employers are going to go through people like us and tap into our talent pool of people, because that's what we're doing. We're building a talent pool of people who are fully prepared, ready to go. Everything's in place, and we're minimizing the risks for you and the employer. The smart employers are going to tap into that and go, all I need to do is offer that person a job. And if I offer that person a job, they're going to get to New Zealand. And that's how you get ahead of this queue. This queue is very real. There's never been a queue like this in the whole time that we've been doing this job. There has never been this buildup of people who want to move. And if you are just randomly firing off CVs, you're right at the back of that queue. And you need to be different.
Yeah, and just from a very practical perspective, back to Hillary, I know that one of Paul's clients in the construction industry has recently been offered a job, yesterday, or the latest example of somebody. Can you just take the audience through the process that you went through, Hillary, in terms of connecting, the employer with the candidate, and the interview process, because that person was in the UK, and the New Zealand employer is obviously in New Zealand. How did it work? What was the process, so that everybody knows the process that we go through to assist them to get in front of the employer? Just quickly, 1 minute, if you can.
Sure. So that person and the people that we have that have had job offers have gone through the process with Paul. So first of all, found out that they were, I guess, eligible to move to New Zealand, which some of them may already know, but also were very clear on the ins and outs of how to get to New Zealand. And also, I guess Paul helps with that, explaining, I guess, the cost of living and the different things that come with moving to a different country. And then that the people move through to our recruitment team. So we spend quite a lot of time with each of you to find out about the types of roles that you want, where you might want to be located in New Zealand. Are you coming out with your family? And then once we understand a little bit more about you, we can talk to our clients about you. So as we were saying before, we've got key clients across the board in different industries. We talk to our client. We basically take them, your CV, your profile, your visa eligibility test, and take them, sort of package you up, if you will, and take them to the clients, where, if they're interested, then we set up Zoom interviews, and the clients might do a couple of those with you to meet their teams in New Zealand, and then if successful, a job offer is made, and then our team support you through the visa to get that job. And as I was saying before, some companies are pipelining or offering, depending on whether they can come in right now or come in once the borders ease.
Fantastic. And I'm going to move on to Candy now, because you talk about people being able to come through right now, and obviously we've had a lot of people come to New Zealand over the last 18 months through the border exception process, particularly in the health industry. Lots and lots of nurses. Candy, can you just really briefly explain the border exception process, how that works, and whether the people that are on here today would actually qualify for that? Candy.
Yeah. So for the border exemption, it's a two-step process, and this is mainly for the critical health worker or other critical workers who are in the infrastructure sector. And so first, they will need to apply for a what we call EOI, expression of interest. They need to express their interest to apply for this critical purpose visitor visa. So this is basically a visitor visa, but they will be given with work rights. So which means that, like, once they land on New Zealand, they will be able to start work straight away. And the second step will be after this EOI has been approved, and the immigration issued this invitation to apply, we call it ITA, and then we will start the whole the actual paperwork for this visitor visa application. And of course, then the outcome will be this critical purpose visa being approved, and they can actually travel with it. And this is currently the only way that you can enter into New Zealand. And it is not like everybody will be able to apply for it. So it's mainly the health worker and people that is work in the infrastructure program that is approved by the government.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, look, so for it to be approved under the critical worker policy, you really have to be quite unique or working on very specific government projects. We've actually had a lot of people declined, and we've really pushed who we think are quite amazing. But on the flip side, we've learned a lot out of those declines, as you do, and we've had hundreds of people approved who meet the criteria, not just in the healthcare industry, but in different industries. So it's worth exploring that. And I think the other thing that's happening here is our MIQ, which is our managed isolation. It was 14 days, now it's 7 days. The government has indicated that that's going to drop. So, this year has been quite expensive for people to come to New Zealand because they've got to go through that MIQ. Mostly the employer will pay, but not always. So next year, as the amount of time in MIQ drops, and perhaps it might drop away to nothing, then it will be slightly cheaper to move to New Zealand as well. So, Candy, thanks for that explanation. It's really important, especially if you're a healthcare worker, you can come here straight away, pretty much. So look, we have come to the end. I know this time goes so quickly. It's only 40 minutes, and we're really only scratching the surface of this whole process. Really, now it's, hey, what's next? How do you move forward? If you think that you want to move to New Zealand or see whether you can move to New Zealand, I honestly can say that in all my experience, which is considerable, this is the best time in terms of the job market. Never ever seen it like this, which means that the government's very open to skilled migration because these skill gaps need to be plugged. They just need to be. When you have a shortage of nurses or a shortage of teachers or a shortage of construction workers or a shortage of auditors, it really does hamper the economy. So immigration windows open and close at the moment. Even though it's closed today, i.e. the borders are shut, we have a very strong view that the windows will be open next year, but only for a short time. So Paul, what would you be recommending people do right now? Just to find out your final words, please.
Basically, if you think that everything is going to stay the same, this is following on what you just said, Scott, it's not. The future is coming. New Zealand cannot remain closed. No country can remain closed. New Zealand is built on immigration and tourism, and immigration and tourism has been shut for 18 months or whatever it is. The government has started to outline a plan of opening up. New Zealand is going to open up. You have a golden opportunity now, while the borders are closed, to get ahead of all those people who I just mentioned, who are queuing up to get into New Zealand. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to do it. They're randomly firing off CVs. That doesn't work. So if you want to get ahead, talk to us. Simple.
Fantastic. Look, I think we're actually I'm very aware of people's time. So I think we're going to have to wrap up now. Hilary, have you got any final words to say?
Yeah, I think everybody, it's just, it's been discussed, but really just about getting prepared now for what's to come, and getting that really good understanding of what you need to do and what your family needs to do to move here. And then once you've got that organised, and then we can start to discuss the roles. Companies want to be a little bit selective on who they choose because they know that there's a large pool of talent out there wanting to move here. So we can help navigate that process and put you in front of those great clients.
Okay, fantastic. And Candy, if you could just final words, please, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. I think Hilary and Paul already summed up, like basically you need to act now and also need to be prepared, and get into the top of the queue. And by doing this is you need to get your paperwork ready, such as your qualification ready, your work reference letter ready, and also registration ready, so that allows you to go in the top of the line and just act now.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, look, it does take time. Honestly, this takes time. It is a bit of a grind, to be honest. A lot of paperwork, a lot of administration, a lot of back and forth, emailing back and forth. but it is a process. It is linear. You do come to the end of it, and eventually you can, come down here and live our lifestyle, which is pretty good, I think. Okay, so look, that's it from us. Really, really appreciate you joining us and listening to this webinar and hearing our experiences. We'd love you to fill out an eligibility assessment, and we'll get back to you immediately and give you some direction as to whether this is possible or not. And from there, we can, continue chatting or not. It's up to you, of course. All right, so it's goodbye from me and goodbye from my panelists, and hope to hear from you and see you again. Thanks very much. Goodbye from New Zealand.
Bye.